And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to be talking about the all the NBA games that went down last night, as well as the big stories that are going down. Now, I already talked about the Lakers and their standings and what could happen, but there's still few more teams that are undecided in their standings and what is available to them and what is their potential, what's their ceiling, and what's their low point. So I'm just pulling up the box scores right now just to do that real quick. Just give me 1 second. If the box scores would load, that would also help me. Jesus. All right. So there were a lot of important games that went down, and the first one that I think is really important is the Knicks going up against the Boston Celtics. The Knicks ended up beating the Celtics 118-109 in the Garden. They weren't in Madison Square Garden. They were in TD Garden, and obviously the number one seed losing to the New York Knicks. I said previously that if it's going to come down to to Eastern Conference Finals, I have the Knicks and the Boston Celtics matching up in that series. And so far, with this matchup that they had, there is a possibility. What? Okay, there we go. Quick edit. My bad. I have no idea what just happened. The service around here, the internet service is really, really bad. I guess it's because it's raining for some reason, and it's it almost kicked me out of OBS. So my bad for all of you guys that in that stream and what happened. But I think we're back. I think Jesus Christ, the Wi-Fi is just not helping me in this case whatsoever. So that's fantastic, isn't it? But yeah, so having a little bit of difficulties with the server, and it's also Jesus Christ, it's also affecting my phone, so I can't even look at the box scores if I even want to, but I still have enough that I can talk about. So regardless, they matched up against each other. Now, the Celtics, their coach, they brushed this game off, if that makes sense. They sort of wanted to defer from talking about this game. They wanted to they said the exact quote, their head coach said that the Knicks were a much more desperate team. And that's kind of a disrespectful thing to say, because it's the playoffs are inbound, so it's why wouldn't a team really be that desperate to try to beat the number one team in their entire conference? So it really seems like these guys, the Celtics, they were trying to just brush this off. Yeah, sure, they were going to win this game because they were the team that wanted to come out on top. They were desperate. And I'm any team is going to want to come out on top when they're going against the number one seed to sort of show them that their dominance, it can be tested. And it's why wouldn't you expect that going into this game? And why are you trying to brush it off as if it's not something to really worry about? I find it relatively odd that they would bother trying to do that. It just seems like a bad look for the Celtics, especially when you look at the box scores and you see that not many people really played that well on the Celtics side. So Tatum ended the game with only 18 points. Drew Holiday ended the game with only 7. Jaylen Brown ended the game with only 15, and Porzingis ended the game with only 14. Now, keep in mind, all of the players that I just mentioned, they're getting a lot of money from the Boston Celtics. And them playing this well, again, it's not really helping them. Now, the Knicks, on the other hand, they had Jalen Brunson go absolutely ballistic, dropping 39 points. DiVincenzo ended the game with 17. Isaiah Hartenstein ended the game with 11 and 13. Josh Hart ended the game with 16 and 16. And OG Anunoby ended the game with 12. So, along with Bojan Bogdanovic coming off the bench and scoring 14 points. So overall, the Knicks, they played better, they shot better, they defended better, they did everything better than this Boston Celtics team, and they really look like they are the team. Like, if there is a team that has a chance in competing against them, this is the team. And I really, really have high hopes for this Knicks team to make it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. And assuming how Boston plays, if they keep their dominance up, then maybe they'll come out on top. But the Knicks have shown that they can beat the Boston Celtics. They have shown that it's possible. So, of all the teams that the Boston Celtics should really be worried about, I think it's the Knicks. Even without Julius Randle, where, like, I mentioned previously, like, Julius Randle, he was supposed to come back from his injury, but he ended up re-injuring himself again, and that ultimately played into whether or not, like, he could come back, and it turns out he's not going to be able to come back. But regardless, they've seemed to, like, show that they can hold it together in this game, especially against the Celtics. So imagine if they bring Mikal Bridges over to the Knicks. That would crush my heart as a Nets fan, but I know he would probably be a lot happier playing with his former teammates. And imagine if Mark Armstrong gets drafted to the Knicks. Oh my gosh, it would literally just be Villanova basketball everywhere on that Knicks team, and that would be amazing. So I can't wait. But next game on this list is the Warriors playing against the Blazers. Now, the Lakers, they kind of needed the Warriors to sort of drop this game in hopes of being able to make their lives going into the 8th seed a little bit easier, because now they have to sort of wait to see if Golden State is going to drop the next 2 games or if they're going to win out the next 2 games. And that could play a really big problem into the seedings, because the Warriors, they also have a chance of moving up to that 8th seed and avoiding playing the Denver Nuggets in that first round. So judging, it's the same story with the Lakers, since they have the same record. They have to hope that they win out. They also have to hope that the Lakers drop a game and the Kings drop a game in order for them to move up to that 8th seed and hopefully avoid playing the Denver Nuggets. Again, however, there's a possibility that the Nuggets might not even get the 1 seed, and depending on how the standings go, they might not even have to play the Denver Nuggets if they stay at the 10th seed and if they win out. So that's going to obviously affect their chances, but I think the Warriors' best chances are to win out, so that way they could avoid playing the Lakers. I think if they play the Lakers, they're going to end up losing. Now, I know they won the previous matchup, but it took a historic performance from the entire Golden State Warriors team and Anthony Davis not being in that game for them to win. So the chances of them beating the Lakers in a series, not entirely sure. And it's all about matchups in the West. And that's going to be the team that is able to get the best matchups going forward is going to be the team that ends up winning. And so far, the Nuggets, they seem to have a great matchup for anybody that they go up against. Except the Mavericks, honestly. The Mavericks, they are the team that could see it, they could probably beat them. But regardless, the Blazers, they ended up losing 92-100 to the Golden State Warriors, and Steph Curry ended the game with 22 points. Kuminga ended with 19. Chris Paul in the starting lineup ended with 8 and 4. Andrew Wiggins ended with 15, and there was no Klay Thompson in this game, but wasn't really that much of a problem. So really unlucky for the Lakers that the Warriors couldn't end up dropping this game. It's just very unlucky for them. Chris Murray, ended the game with 14 points. Scoot Henderson ended the game with 18 and 12. Jabari Walker ended the game with 17 and 16. DeAndre Ayton ended with 25 and 11. So great performances for the Blazers. It's just unfortunate that they couldn't end up winning in the end. And Scoot Henderson shot a horrible 7 of 20 from the field, which definitely hurt this team and their winning odds. So it's they hoped to win this game. Scoot Henderson was the player and the reason why they didn't. The Bulls ended up beating the Pistons 127-105. not really much that needs to be talked about with this game, given how, like, the Bulls, they're just a better team than the Pistons. While the Bulls, they might be in the mid-tier of the Eastern Conference, they're still a relatively good team. Vucevic ended the game with 27 and 11. DeMar DeRozan ended with 39, almost dropped 40 points. And let's see, Kobe White ended the game with 18 points as well. And that was basically like all the important scoring that came in from the Chicago Bulls. The Pistons, they ended up losing, and I can't believe I said beating. Excuse me. I didn't expect. I don't know what that was. But Marcus Sasser ended the game with 20 points, and Jalen Duren ended the game with 20 points and 11 rebounds. So overall, like, coming in from the Pistons, it was basically just those two guys doing all the work, and the rest of them couldn't make that same production since they got blown out by 127 to 105. So this is by far the worst Pistons team ever in terms of record, and arguably the worst NBA team ever, given how they literally broke the single season record for most consecutive losses in a season. So no one would have expected the Pistons to get over 10 wins, if we're going to be frank, and it really just shows like where this team is. Now, the Jazz and the Rockets, they matched up against each other, two teams that are already eliminated from contention. Both of them are they're tanking, so it kind of cancels out because, like, you know, they're both relatively bad, so they're on that same skill level. So it was a really good game. The final score was 124 to 121. The Jazz ended up winning. Now, Luka Samanik ended the game with 22. Keontae George ended the game with 20. And there was no Lauri Markkanen in this game, so I guess they sort of they allow him to rest for the rest of the season. Talon Horton-Tucker ended the game with 16, and Bryce Sensaba ended the game with 17 as well. Now, on Houston's side, Fred VanVleet ended the game with 42 points. It wasn't enough, however, for this game. He also ended with 7 rebounds and 7 assists. Amen Thompson ended the game with 15 points and 10 rebounds, and that was basically all the important scoring coming in from the Rockets. Unfortunately for them, they got eliminated from play-in contention a little bit earlier in the season, and it really is looking rough for this Houston team. They need Sengun in order to produce, and they haven't had him for a majority of the season given how he was injured. Well, the latter half of the season, I should say. Excuse me. So, the Pelicans, they ended up matching up against the Kings, as I mentioned previously, and they end up winning 135 to 123. So the Kings lost in a blowout, and now this is sort of paving the Lakers to be able to get that 8th seed, because they're going into Phoenix tonight. And they're coming off back-to-back games, and it's a lot more difficult for a team to win back-to-back and play back-to-back as opposed to, like, you know, getting a day to rest. It's just like, especially like after losing. So this is the perfect opportunity for the Lakers to come in and steal that 8th seed. It's a perfect chance. Like, they have the right of way in this scenario. And depending on how it goes, we have no idea how it's going to go, but depending on how it goes, maybe they can take that 7th or that 8th seed. But it's very, very, very close. Now, looking at the box scores, De'Aaron Fox ended the game with 33 points, playing 41 minutes. Sabonis ended with 18 points and 10 rebounds. Harrison Barnes ended with 22 points. And Keegan Murray ended the game with 19 points. And that was basically all of the scoring that came in from the Kings. They played very, very well, but the Pelicans, they just played a lot better. CJ McCollum ended the game with 31 points, along with Zion, who also ended with 31 points. Trey Murphy III ended with 27 points, and Valanciunas ended with 13 and 10. And coming off the bench, Jose Alvarado, Grand Theft Alvarado, he ended the game with 14 points, and overall, just a better shooting performance and a better three-point shooting performance they showed than the Kings, even though the Kings shot 42% from 3. And the Pelicans, they shot 55% from 3. And they just played a lot better. This was a very high scoring game. The offense was going ballistic on both sides. So with it, like, it was just too much for the Kings to be able to handle. And with the defense struggling, that means that, like, going up against the Kings, coming off of back-to-back, it is going to, not the Kings, like, going up against Phoenix in a back-to-back, and their defense allowing this amount of points for the Pelicans to drop on them, it's not looking good. And it's looking even better for the Lakers because it means they could steal that 8th seed. But with that, those are all the games that went down yesterday, and therefore we are out of time for this third segment. So now I will be going into the fourth segment where I talk about Bronny James and the NBA draft yet again, because there is some insight, like some NBA insiders had some things to say about Bronny James that I didn't really like, but given how, I am a LeBron fan, obviously I'm not going to like it when people are criticizing my glorious King's glorious offspring, But regardless, like, jokes aside, there were some things that they said that I thought was interesting and I wanted to talk about, so I will be right back after this short break.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.